I really hope Niantic ends up watching this video because there's a lot of problems with Pokemon Go, and I think there's a lot of ways Niantic could fix it. Hey, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go video. Alright, so today's going to be a discussion topic video. I did not want to make a guide or a tips and tricks video without talking about all the stuff that I'm going to be discussing in this video. So what inspired me to make this video is actually the weather right now in Chicago. It's actually incredibly dangerous to go out and play right now where I live. And that is because we have sub-zero temperatures outside. But in spite of that, Niantic decided to add a lot of key events during this time, and I, along with a lot of other people in my community, was unfortunately not able to participate. But that's besides the point. I really feel like Pokemon Go is not in a good place right now in the beginning of 2024. There's a lot of things that Niantic is doing right now to try to make up the revenue for the remote raid pass nerf, and in general, it just seems like the sentiment around Pokemon Go is at an all-time low. Now, I've made videos like this in the past, talking about how Pokemon Go is in trouble, but this time around, I really feel like there's a couple of things that Niantic could do to make the game a lot better, especially in this year of 2024. It really feels like this year is a critical year for this game because, yeah, I think a lot of players have not played Pokemon Go as much as they used to, and there's a lot of players who are starting to quit the game outright. And ultimately, that's on Niantic. I think some of the design decisions that they made in 2023 has contributed to what is inevitably going to be the downfall of this game. So I do think there's some positive changes that Niantic could do to help alleviate a lot of those players leaving. And really, I do hope they consider some of the things that I'm about to talk about. So the first thing is, of course, take into consideration that not everyone in the world is experiencing California weather throughout the year. That is a pretty big deal because right now in Chicago, like I said, it is extremely dangerous to go out and play. And yet Niantic is giving us a whole bunch of different events that require us to go out and play the game outdoors. Like for example, recently we had Hisuian Typhlosion Raid Day, which a lot of players in my area were not able to do. And that is simply because it was too dangerous to go outside. But regardless, Niantic decided to still hold this event in spite of a bunch of players experiencing sub-zero temperatures right now in North America. I think that was a bad move, in my opinion. I feel like what they should have done is postpone this raid day and make sure that a lot of players were able to participate, because it didn't seem like I was getting a lot of remote raid invites for this event, and it was something that I was not able to personally go out and play because of the weather. I'm not saying that Niantic should withhold content simply because there's a lot of players out there who experience inclement weather, but I think they need to find a good middle ground. Like, when it comes to different various in-game events, they need to take into consideration that some players out there may not be able to participate. So I think more events like the upcoming Battle Week is something that Niantic should consider around this time of year. The Go Battle League themed event is not something that requires you to go out and play outdoors in order to get the best experience. It's going to be all about the Go Battle League, so you can stay at home and do a lot of PvP battles, and they're even increasing the amount of Team Go Rocket balloons that you can get. So it's a straight up indoors playable event, which I can really appreciate right now because of the weather. And of course, this also helps players who live in rural areas and those who have physical disabilities as well. It's not always just about the weather. There's other players out there who have accessibility issues with Pokemon Go, and having more indoor themed events are always going to be a huge plus. But for them to hold different events like the Hisuian Typhlosion Raid Day, where it is almost imperative that you go outside and play, yeah, that's going to be a bad look on Niantic, especially right now where there's a lot of players who just simply cannot go outside and play in order to be safe. Now, another thing that I think Niantic should consider doing is reevaluating their core philosophies around Pokemon Go. Yeah, I understand this is something I've talked about quite extensively on my YouTube channel, and it's kind of like beating a dead horse at this point, but I really do think this idea that Niantic wants us to go out and play outdoors and in big communities, that just simply does not work in the current landscape of Pokemon Go. Like with the remote raid pass nerf last year, I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that Niantic have made in the past several years, and I think it's something they need to go back and backtrack, at least meet us in the middle. I've talked about this many times on my YouTube channel, but I really think the idea of them doubling the cost of remote raid passes and setting the limit to 5 per day was a very bad move, and they need to alleviate that a little bit. Was just a bit too steep, and I think they need to meet us in the middle. I'm not necessarily saying they need to go back to how remote raid passes were in the past, but I think doubling the price and setting the limit to 5 was just too far, and I think they need to ease it back just a little bit. Maybe have the remote raid passes cost 125 Pokecoins, and then have the remote raid limit per day be set to 10. I think that would be a much better middle ground, and it's something that I really hope Niantic considers. Speaking of which, I think a lot of those pandemic bonuses really made the game a lot more playable for a majority of players. And I'm not necessarily saying they need to bring it back to those pandemic times, because I don't think that's ever going to be a possibility. But maybe they could find a middle ground, just like with remote raid passes. I think that would be very healthy for Pokemon Go. It just seems like Niantic has been boxing players in to how they want players to play. I think what they really need to do is be more in tune with the Pokemon Go community, because right now it just seems like they're completely out of touch. Like, they've been implementing a lot of stuff in Pokemon Go that nobody has been asking for, like routes, and with Mateo, and then with party play. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is cool in paper, but in practice, I don't think a lot of players actually cared about it. Like, party play is probably one of the most forgotten features that we've seen in the past couple of years. And then that's a real shame, because there was a lot of potential with party play, but Niantic did not meet that potential. And I really feel like instead of implementing a bunch of new stuff, I think what they need to do is focus in on the stuff that's already there and make it more accessible and a lot more playable. I think right now Pokemon Go is in a place where Niantic is very desperate for trying to make up the revenue that they've been losing with the remote raid pass nerf. Like, every single in-game event seems to feature a bunch of paid research tickets, and that is a sign that the game is not doing well. Like, I really do not like the fact that every single event is just littered with a bunch of in-app purchases. I do not like the fact that a lot of really good Pokemon and a lot of the most important Pokemon are locked behind raids and egg hatches, like recently with the Rockruff event. Like, in order to get a Rockruff that will evolve into Dusk form Lycanroc, you would have had to raid a lot and hatch a lot of eggs. That is a lot of money that you were required to spend in order to get this Pokemon that was highly desired. That is very unfortunate that Niantic is designing the game in this way. It's making it so that it's completely inaccessible for anyone who is not necessarily playing the game hardcore. It has essentially become a pay-to-win game. You need to actually spend money in Pokemon Go in order to get everything that the game can offer you. Like, that is not good. I do not like the fact that Pokemon Go is in that state. There was a time where spending money was seen as optional. Like, you could do everything in the game free to play and get everything in the game free to play. But nowadays, it seems like you need to spend money in order to get the best experience, and that is very unfortunate. I do not like the fact that Pokemon Go is in that state, and I really hope Niantic makes some positive changes, because if they keep this up, a lot of players are going to quit, and the game is going to completely fall off. It's been very apparent in the last year. Ever since they nerfed remote raids, there's been a lot less activity in my local communities. Sure, there's still a lot of people who are still playing, but I feel like those numbers are starting to dwindle every single day. Every raid hour, it seems like less and less people are coming out, and when it comes to the chatter and all of the enthusiasm within my local community discords, it just seems like a lot of that stuff is starting to die out. And yeah, I think Niantic is aware of it, and I really do hope that they reevaluate that core philosophy of making the game all about being outdoors and all about communities. I think what they should do is just find a happy medium. Yeah, they can still keep their philosophies about making it an exploration-based game, because ultimately, yes, it is an exploration-based game, but they should also consider that some players do want to play the game indoors, and they want to play the game at home. And that's fine. I think a lot of players have adopted certain playstyles, and rather than just negating a lot of those playstyles, they should lean into it a lot more. So yeah, there's just a lot of things I'm really concerned about when it comes to Pokemon Go, especially now in 2024. Like I said before, I think this is going to be a very critical year for this game, and I really hope Niantic comes out on top, really. Like, if they're paying attention to the community, I think they can go really far. They don't necessarily have to do everything that the community is asking for, but they should still grab a couple of ideas, because the community still comes up with some really good stuff. And yeah, I think it's something that Niantic should not ignore. But in any case, that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts regarding Pokemon Go right now. Yeah, I know I've talked about a lot of this stuff before, but I still think it's worth repeating, because Pokemon Go is in a bit of a critical state. and I really do hope that Pokemon Go ends up surviving for at least a couple more years. Not just for the sake of my own YouTube channel, but because I actually really enjoy this game, and I want to see it succeed. But in order for that to happen, Niantic needs to be more in tune with the Pokemon Go community. But I would love to know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about. Is there something that you completely disagree with? Is there something that you would like to see Pokemon Go do in the year 2024? Definitely share those thoughts and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you ended up enjoying it and found it to be insightful, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. Now I want to give a quick shout out to all my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then make sure you go and check out the links in the description below. For every single member of my Patreon family, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way within Pokemon Go, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. Also, if you want to support my channel without spending any money, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on these platforms that you see on your screen. Alright, and that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch y'all later.